Today is cucumber canning day. We just got so many cucumbers now that we need to deal with them ASAP. So the first thing in any canning process is that we have to wash the jars, although I do wash the jars before I put them away for the next year, but they're sitting in a dusty basement. I am going to wash them again before I use them. So nice hot soapy water. And as I said, these are really clean, but I'm gonna wash them a little bit and make sure that especially around the rim, nothing is chipped. I'm gonna rinse them all as well. For today's canning, I'm gonna use mostly the over-ripened canning cucumbers, pickling cucumbers that we didn't catch in time, so they're pretty big to be pickled whole. And you can see that some of them are yellow. And these been washed already, so the first thing I want to make sure is that they're not bitter. So I cut off the ends and I taste it. Tasted both ends, and they're not bitter. If you find that it's bitter on the end, then you can keep cutting it off until you find a section that's not bitter, and you can still use that because it starts bittering from the end. If that makes sense, bittering. Now I'm gonna peel all of these. That was a lot of peeling, but that's done. So next, I'm gonna have some onions. I have 2 large onions. So because this is a lot to slice thin, I'm not gonna do it by hand. I'm gonna get my machine out at this time. Especially because I'm going to slice them in small pieces, meaning instead of having a big slice like this, I'm going to probably cut this in half or maybe into quarters, some of these fat ones. faster than doing by hand. I'm gonna need a big bowl. Actually, I'm gonna try to measure this to see how many cups I get out of it. This is a 4-cup measuring cup. So I only did 2 cucumbers and now it's already 2 cups. So we'll have a lot of these. I probably could have gotten some of these seeds out, but I'm not gonna worry too much. Doesn't bother me. Like this one has big seeds, I might take those out. So that's 4 cups. When it's so big, you might want to take those out. You just push it out with your finger. Like that. Get rid of them. Fit this in, last little one. So another 4 cups, so that's 8 cups. So that's another 4, that's 12 cups, roughly. And another 2 cups, so we have 14 cups of cucumber. And now I'm gonna do the onions the same way. Because these are big onions, I'm gonna cut them into quarters. And slice them this way. So I have about 4 cups of onions to go with the 14 cups of cucumbers. So that gives me 18 cups of canning material. I'm gonna turn on my oven because I'm gonna sterilize the jars in the oven. I'm gonna turn it on 215 degrees, which is almost the lowest, and I'm gonna bake the clean jars for 15 minutes. First, I'm only doing 7 jars because that's what's gonna fit into my canning pot. The next step is to figure out how much salt, sugar, and vinegar I'm gonna need. Now normally I would make about 4 cups of this material at once for the salad, and for 4 cups I would put in about a 1/4 cup of sugar and a couple of tablespoons of vinegar. So I need to multiply my 4 cup recipe to adjust for 18 cups. I have to multiply my normal recipe by 4.5. A cup and a 1/4 sugar for this entire thing. And don't get me wrong, we're gonna taste it and see if I need more. It's not a problem to add more, but you can take away, right? So I'm gonna do a cup and a 1/4 sugar. Now for salt, I would just put a big pinch for each. So I'm gonna do 4 big pinches and a half, right? And then for the vinegar, I would say, again, it's about 2 tablespoons for each 4 cups. So that's about just a half a cup. Obviously I can measure it by spoon, but let's just start with a half a cup. And we can again adjust, just don't put too much. And for that reason, I'm gonna leave them out so I can adjust the flavors. So I'm gonna dump all my onions and my cucumbers into this big pot so I can mix them up nicely. And this will generate a lot of liquid. But because I'm canning, I may need some additional liquid to add to this. So I'm also going to probably prepare some extra brine with the same kind of proportions as I did for the cucumber. So I'm gonna probably just make 4 cups of brine, and based on that I'm gonna put some sugar, vinegar and salt into the brine, and then that will allow me to top off the jars as I'm canning. So I'm gonna make sure the sugar and the salt is dissolved in this pot. And if you're afraid that it's gonna pick up some metal taste from the pot, you can, after you mixed it up, you can put it back into a glass container. If that helps you feel better. So I can put it back in here. And it will collapse. As I said, the water is gonna be drawn out. So by volume it's gonna be less. I can go ahead and put it into this bowl some. There we go. And we'll come back and taste this in about 15 minutes, and that's gonna give us enough time for the jars to heat up as well. I'm gonna take my canning pot, fill it up with water up to the point where I know it's gonna cover my jars when they're full, and I'm gonna bring this to a boil while waiting for the jars to sterilize. While that is coming to a boil, I'm gonna make some extra brine if I need it. So I got 4 cups of water. I'm gonna put in 3 tablespoons of sugar, just like if I was making a single recipe cucumber salad. Big pinch of salt, right? And 2 tablespoons of vinegar. Now be careful with the vinegar, it depends on what kind you need to measure accordingly. Right there, it's 5%. So I just want to bring this to a boil at one point and dissolve the sugar. You see how much liquid is coming off of it? That's going to be used mostly for the canning, and I'm going to try to get rid of some of the seeds from the liquid. You see what I'm going to do with that. And I just want to taste the liquid and the cucumber and see how it is. I think it's perfect. I like it more on the sweet side. Yeah, I don't want it too sour, so taste your liquid, because the liquid will be more sour than the cucumber itself. So go for that level of sweet and sour taste that you can tell from the liquid what you like, okay? And I really want to just mix them all together, because that way it's more uniform. Now that I can fit them all in one bowl, and they're mixed up pretty well, I think. I'm gonna put my lids into hot water to soften them up, ready to go. The first batch I'm gonna do 7 jars, so that's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. And Also, I like to put the rings in here too, to kind of by the same temperature. It just helps with the canning process. I got my canning water over there boiling, and my jars are done sterilizing. I have a wooden spoon that I'm going to use to debubble. I have this to get the things out of the oven, and I have this to put them into the canner. Okay, I'm going to turn down this candy water. And so I got my jars, and I'm going to do them in phases. I have 4 jars ready to go. I'm gonna start filling them up with the cucumber. And I'm putting a little bit of juice as well as I go. I'm gonna push down a little bit, so it's just gonna end up right below the neck of the jar. If I have too much, I'll take some out. Don't want to overfill them either. More. So I don't think I'm going to need extra brine, perhaps, because this is pretty liquidy. Okay, do I have enough in these? A little more here, can put a little more in here. And now I'm going to put some of the liquid that came off the cucumber, and I'm going to just kind of use a strainer to catch any extra seeds that I really don't want. And this I'm going to let it go all as far as possible, the liquid part, which is, in this case, is just the bottom of my funnel, so that's about 1/4 inch, I think. This may have a little too much, so let's take that out. Okay, need some more juice. I think I'm gonna be able to do all this in one batch. It's gonna fit into 7 jars based on where I am right now. Well, we'll see. Okay, so now all of them has the right amount of liquid. I'm gonna do some debubbling, which is just pushing the wooden spoon into it just to bring up any bubbles that may have been trapped. That's the way I'm going to avoid any siphoning, although I don't think it occurs very often, but it could. I did them all right. Okay, they all have enough liquid, I think. Now we're going to wipe off the mouths of the jars just with some wet paper towel, so I make sure there's no salt or sugar or any stickiness that would prevent it from sealing. And I can take these out. And let's put the lid on it. And now we're gonna tighten the ring on the jar, just slightly without forcing it too much with your hand. And now I'm going to put these into the canner. While I'm filling the other jars, the rest of the jars. So it's not too hot. Your canning water really should be the temperature of what your thing that you're canning. So my jars were hot, so hopefully they're not gonna crack. So let's do the last 3 that I have in the oven sterilizing. I hope we're gonna have some leftovers from this to eat tonight with dinner. And for these, because they're just pint size, I only have to process them, can them for 10 minutes. I may do it 15 because my cucumbers are not hot. So that's another thing, I could have heated the cucumbers. So this one, if I'm lucky, will fill 2 jars only. That's okay, because I do have more cucumbers, so I can make more salad for tonight's dinner. I'd rather can as much as possible out of this because, again, we have a whole lot of amount of cucumbers still. Okay, so these are not going to be whole jars, but I'm going to fill it up with the liquid all the way as much as possible. So I may need some, after all, I may need some extra brine that I made earlier. So that's a good thing that I have it handy. Okay, that's for that. Wasting anything. Okay, I think I have enough. Okay, do a little debubbling, wiping, and just 2 lids. These rings have been reused so many times, that's why they look so beat up, but I do have some new ones that I'm going to start to use into the canner. And now I'm going to turn it up to boil. Cover it up, and this guy is bubbling a lot, so I'm gonna have to pull this out because did I actually tighten this up enough? I wonder. Just a little more. Okay. So I'm gonna cook these jars for 15 minutes. Time is up. I'm gonna take them out of the boiling water and just put them on a towel to cool off slowly. I'm gonna actually save this canning water for tomorrow when I'm gonna be canning some jam. So here they are. So these, as they're cooling, they're gonna start popping, and that's when as it cools, it creates a vacuum, a slight vacuum, and that will pull in the lids. So they pop down. That's what you're looking for to make sure that they are sealed. So I'm gonna leave this on so you can actually listen to some of the popping, but it might take a few minutes before you actually hear them. Okay, so they're trying to pop like 5 minutes after I already took them out. You heard it just now. It's been a couple of hours. So now they're all sealed nicely. You can tell also it's from the sound. But if you take off the rings, which I always do, don't store them with the ring. You can try to take the lid off and it doesn't come off. That's how you know it's done sealing. This is the one that's sealed last, I can tell, because earlier I came across them, I was dumping on them, and the sound of the one that doesn't seal will be a more hollow thump as well. That's the other way you can tell. But these are all sealed. I'm gonna wash the rings. Label the jars with at least the date. But I also write what it is, because then if I'm looking at it from the top, I can tell what they are instead of having to look at the content too much. And then these gonna go into my pantry on the shelves. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.